Hi, welcome to Rena TV. I'm Rena Hedeman, and I've got with me here today two incredible guests. We've got Dr. Kim and Dr. Mario, founders of the Thrive Doctors, and they are going to share some amazing information with us about the mind, body, spirit, and how they all interconnect. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us. We're
for
so
having us.
excited to teach, share what we teach with your group. So thanks. We
Fantastic.
really appreciate it.
So where do you want to start? There's so much you've taught me already. I don't even know where to begin.
Well, my background is in emergency medicine, and Mario is in interventional radiology, and we actually have different foundations for medicine. I'm an osteopathic doctor. He's a traditional MD physician. My board certification is in emergency medicine, so I sort of have a mix of all of my training. And over the last really year, we've come together in what we're doing because we've noticed from two different vantage points a major piece that's been missing in the foundation of clinical medicine. Not just something you could throw in and, oh, let's add this to the mix, but a foundational change in the perspective from which we're teaching and we're treating and dealing with patients.
Wow.
And when she says foundation, she really means that all the education that we've been receiving in medicine arena has been missing a big piece, a big component that we've seen in more than 30 plus years of combined medical experience, and seeing how the patients are responding to the treatment that we are part of. And after looking at that particular challenge and coming together and saying, this is my experience, Kim, what's been your experience? We said we definitely have to get out there and bring a different kind of message. And in the process of getting that education and seeing what other people have done, it's come to a point historically where we said to each other, you know what? We need to really do this. We need to come together and start bridging that gap. People talk about the mind, people talk about the spirit, but if I'm just a regular patient and I go to a doctor, I may not be able to really understand that mind and spirit thing. All I just want to do is I just want to get better.
Exactly, yeah.
So how do we do that? And Kimberly, like she said, she has a background in emergency medicine. My background is interventional radiology. Very different ends of the spectrum. Her seeing the patients in the clinical setting, and my end seeing patients when I'm operating on them. However, the essence is the same. Who is that person in front of us? And that's why we created the Thrive Doctors.
Well, really, we saw that, we've got a bankrupt medical system right now.
Yes.
And most physicians are actually pretty dried up working in the system they're in where it's really run by the pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
And all of our education, our CME, our continuing medical education is actually founded by the pharmaceutical industry. The journals that we read, Journal of American Medical Association, New England Journal of Medicine, 90% of the content in there is created or funded in some way by the pharmaceutical industries.
Really? That high?
That's blowing your mind, right?
Wow.
Well, the big foundational thing is that your wellness, your health, the key to your vitality lies outside of you, and you need some person to give it to you, to come in and help you and give you something that you don't already have. But the truth of life and how we really work is that our keys to our success, our health, our great relationships, all of the things that make a thriving life complete are actually within us.
Yes, I believe that too.
And when we empower the patient and look at what we can do to assist the patient in connecting with their health and connecting with their vitality, as we
Right.
call that inner physician,
Right.
then we can really sync them up and resource them to beyond just surviving, but really thriving.
Right. So it sounds like you two are not talking about any kind of woo-woo or alternative medicine that you do instead of traditional medicine. It sounds to me like with your backgrounds in traditional medicine, you combine that along with our own innate wisdom that we all have and powers of self-healing that we have. And do you teach this to people?
Yes. So the basic way I can cut it all down is your thoughts are a biochemical reaction in your body. And that biochemical reaction is either going to have a positive or negative effect on your cells, on your vessels, on your organs,
Like physically?
on your glands, physically.
Wow.
Because every thought you have, it's a neurotransmitter.
Yes.
You have dopamine, you have epinephrine, you have endorphins, all these different things floating around that have you have a sensation of an emotion
Right.
and an awareness. And the
Right.
thought is actually transmitted by neurochemicals. And it used to be thought that, your mind was in the brain. So there are these neurotransmitters, and they're really just affecting the brain, and they're created in the brain. But then around the 80s, it was found, well, they're not just affecting the brain. They also have an effect on your kidneys, and they have an effect on your vessels, and they have an effect on every major organ system. Have receptors for neurotransmitters. Then it went even beyond that, that they find neurotransmitters aren't just created in the brain, they're also created in the heart, created in the kidneys, created in other organs.
Wow. So they're all over us.
Yeah, and then we find the mind is actually interwoven throughout the entire body, so that every aspect of ourselves is in fact thinking.
Wow, that's powerful.
Now, if you take that, there's another tier of power to that, which is we can consciously create the medium, which is all those substances that are going to be surrounding the cells. And in fact, we just had an amazing conversation with Dr. Bruce Lipton, the famous epienicist.
Yes.
And he was just talking about this, Rena, and it's really amazing because for the first time in history, in the past 20 years, there is a progressive understanding and adoption of this thought, which has been scientifically proven, that our thoughts, and just like Kimberly was saying, are biochemical substances. We have the capacity to impact their production. You see, many of us have thought for many years that if you were born with X or Y genes, you're doomed. You know, if your dad had a heart attack, I'm going to have a heart attack because it's in the genes. If somebody has diabetes in the family, watch out, diabetes is coming your way.
Yeah.
So we live with this fear that just because that's in the family, therefore the genes, that's what's coming my way.
Yeah.
But what's really been discovered, and we talked to Bruce about this, is that your genes are completely controllable, if you will, by the way that we're thinking.
Yeah.
And people, they used to think, well, that's kind of like, you can't really affect your body with your thoughts. But now there's scientific evidence.
That's fantastic. Because I've always believed that in my heart, but I never knew there was really scientific evidence. I had heard there was, but I hadn't heard anyone, like a physician like you two, explaining it to me. So this is so fascinating.
Yeah, and when you get
changes
this,
everything.
it changes the entire foundational principle
Yes.
that our medical
Yes.
clinical system is built on.
Yes.
So that instead of trying to figure out, okay, this patient has depression and their dopamine's low and their serotonin levels are low, so they have a serotonin problem. So I need to fix their serotonin problem. I need to give them some serotonin or a serotonin reuptake inhibitor medicine.
Is that what,
helps.
say, Prozac is?
Yeah, like an SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Okay.
It basically helps your body use the serotonin that it does make, and it will stick around longer.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's how it will
Okay,
work.
Okay.
But when you've ever experienced, if you've ever had any periods where you've been depressed or really down, you just can't get out of it, and you think, I didn't just all of a sudden develop a serotonin deficiency.
Right.
My body didn't just forget how to make serotonin. What is it that's going on that's giving my cells, my glands, a message to produce a different level of serotonin than what I really need to thrive?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
maybe what I used to have,
Yeah.
what I used to produce. Just like any other hormonal deficiency. Until we go through menopause, we should have relatively balanced cyclic levels of hormones. So when I've treated women for infertility and things like this, where they have even vaginal dryness or low libido, and then they found out, oh, my hormones are low. That's the problem. The problem's over here, and I have a hormone deficiency. So then it's the pill, right? I need this pill. This is the hormone deficiency. But you have to stop and ask, well, what was it that made your body no longer secrete and create the levels of hormones that would be appropriate for your age and your level of, in your reproductive cycle? It needs to occur to us as physicians what preceded that. What was it that happened that now is giving those organs and glands this message to create these kinds of chemicals at these levels? Because it's a set point. Your body has these feedback loops, and it knows how to do that.
And in
So-
your experience, is it usually a life experience, someone died, or something going on at work, or too much stress?
You know what? It's
usually
all
is it?
of the above. Because even if nothing specifically happened, right? All I did was turn 35. I didn't have a car accident or someone died or lose my lover. I just turned 35. Well, but when I was young, I learned, 35 is the age, right? If you don't have a child at 35, your risk is going to go up. And there's all these studies about statistics linked to your greater risk of having a child who has a chromosomal abnormality. Well, you're still infinitely more likely to have a healthy child at that age than you are to not. But
you
there
start
is
to
this
stress out about
and
it.
you know this study. So you're like aware, ding, 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 this little bell went off because you're 35. It has meaning, right?
Yes.
Anytime something has meaning for you, it's a program in your body that sends a message to your cells to behave and create and secrete and act a certain way.
Got it.
Right? So you're programming your body to dysfunction in some way because your idea of, oh, now I'm 35, I'm going to fall apart at 35. It won't be okay. I have to have kids. I can't have kids after 35. Your body, your cells are actually listening to your thoughts about your health and about your life.
Right.
You know, it occurs to me,
That's
this is really funny. Kim was talking about the 35 years of age, you know, for the woman. We were just recording a video the other day with frequently asked questions for physicians. And I remember going back to my childhood, my father saying when he became 35,
Yeah.
telling my mom, and I was a kid, saying, well, I reached the peak. From now on, it's all downhill.
Wow.
And it's really interesting because when I became 35, I'm 39 now, and at that point came in my life, I said, what's going to happen from this point on? Am I just going to be walking on eggshells because, you know, my back is going to get from something like that? And the fact of the matter is that all those things get programmed in us over time. And what's really fascinating is that we've come to a point to understand that, as we call operating system, and Bruce Lipton talks about this, is running us all the time, subconsciously 90% of the time, which means that all the physiology, all the internal chemistry that is happening millisecond to millisecond is being impacted by all that programming. That has huge repercussions.
Yeah.
Because when I've seen patients that they come in with tremendous fears before being operated, and you may be one of those people who've gone to an operation to your surgeon and you don't know all the information, or maybe you
You're
don't feel
scared.
good, you're scared about the operation that is coming. Well, the great news is that there's a way to stop that thinking and access what your body has to offer you, which is already innate to each
That's
and every
really
one of
cool.
us. Deepak Chopra, he said it brilliantly. Human beings were walking pharmacies.
Yes.
What I see that is missing in that statement is that you are the pharmacist.
Right, yes.
So we have the opportunity to create, based on everything that is available to us, how is it that I'm going to put this together so that I can bring, boom, to the surface the result that I want? So before we go outside of ourselves to look for the answer, what is it that is coming up for me and my health, for you and your health, it warrants just taking a minute just to say, hold on, this is what I'm experiencing in my health or the way I'm feeling. Is there something inside of me that this is the message that I'm getting that needs to be paid attention to before I just research myself outside?
Right.
And unfortunately, that's something that physicians, traditionally, we're not educated to do with our patients.
Right.
It's like, you come, this is what your symptoms are, this is the solution. But what if the solution that I give you does not make it happen for you? That's why then patients come to a point like, wow, I've done everything I can do. I've gone to every single Chinese and Himalayan doctor, and they still can figure it out. What is it? And the missing link in that is, what have I done for myself to acknowledge the power that is inside of me, that there's scientific evidence for?
And
that's a
let
game
that
changer.
work with the procedure and work with the medication and work so that you actually absorb, you actually respond differently to medications, which have been shown for decades and decades and decades with the placebo effect. Your body will respond physiologically, right? 'Cause
Yes.
people take a placebo, they don't just think they get better. They
really
physiologic,
do.
cellular, there's
Yes.
changes we can see that actually do get better.
Yes.
But also with procedures, and you've had a lot of experience with that, with administering, you know, a tincture of love up front so that people are physiologically aligned with having a procedure that's successful. So the inflammatory cascade shuts off. You know, when we're stressed and we're in fear, your inflammatory cascade off the roof. Bradykinin and histamine, epinephrine, cortisol, and all of these things have a detrimental effect on our health and on our healing and on our ability to withstand a surgical procedure, even a minor surgical procedure. If your blood pressure is going crazy and your heart rate's going crazy and you're tachycardic and you're sweating and you're going to pass out and you can't undergo even a simple procedure. Some patients have to have anesthesia for that.
Yeah.
And you've had, I think you should talk about it too, but he's had incidences where he'll literally, with a tincture of love, get that patient connected. This needle is your friend. And it changes everything right away.
It's really interesting. I had the opportunity to train at Yale and Harvard in my medical education. And some of the things that I started to do, I was never exposed to them, you know, in the classrooms and in school. And I remember the first time that I invoked the use of love to create local anesthesia.
Wow, I
Some
love
years
that.
ago. Rena, it was amazing. This person came in, had lung cancer, and some of the lung cancer patients, they build up fluid in their lungs, so they have to be tapped, what's called a thoracentesis. So this patient came to have one of those procedures done. And the 2 times that he had been to the hospital before that, he had been given local anesthetic, lidocaine, which is the name of the anesthetic. And he had syncopized, he had passed out. So the 3rd time that he comes in, I had never seen the gentleman. He says, "Doctor, you're not going to be able to do this. This is what happens, and no way in hell." And I said, "You know what? Let's just do something different." And I had my nurse and I had my techs. We had all the vital sign monitors right there so we could see what was going on. And I said, "Let me ask you something. Can you tell me about an image that comes to your mind that means love to you?" And he said, "My wife."
Oh.
And I said, "Great. Well, this is what we're going to do, Dave. What we're going to do is, I'm going to put my hand on your back so that you know which is the area where we're going to be working. So
Okay.
you're just aware that that's the area. It's not that something is coming out of my hand." I told him, and he started laughing. And I said, "Once I clean up your back, I'm going to ask you to bring the memory of love, your wife, to that area.
Okay.
Okay? And close your eyes, and I want you to breathe as you're thinking of your wife." And I said, "The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you for permission. This needle is your friend. It's not something that is going to harm you, but you need to allow me to do that. Is that okay with you?"
Wow, that is very different from your
Very
average
different.
doctor and
And
anesthesiologist.
the thing is, it does generate a biochemical
Response,
change, not
yes.
only just at that local
But
area,
all over.
throughout the whole body.
See, right there, it's oxytocin, which is a hormone of love, is being invoked. He's thinking about the wife. And the other thing is that there's permission. Permission has
I
been
see.
granted.
I see.
So the body is in a completely different state.
It's relaxation.
We're in an allowing state,
We're
right?
in
Yes,
allow-
constricted state.
allowing state, and
yeah.
there's collaboration. I put my catheter in. There was no anesthesia.
Wow.
I do the procedure. It took about a little and a half of fluid or so. Completed the procedure, and I said, "Dave, we're done." And he said, "You've got to be kidding me." The nurses were there, and so on. They can see heart rate during the procedure dropping down in rate.
Wow.
Blood pressure dropping down.
Wow.
The respiratory rate dropping down. This
Yeah.
is not an
I
isolated
believe
event.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
And this is stuff that the body is, I like to call the body a nuclear power plant. 90% plus is water. And hydrogen molecules are what make atomic bombs.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
There's a lot of that in here. The power is just incredible. And when we tap on that, based on the physiology, the neurophysiology, it's just unbelievable.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that story.
Amazing.
Now, a lot of people are unfortunately having visits to their doctor or the hospital, but there are also a lot of people out there who are, for all intents and purposes, pretty well with not too many visits to the doctor or not too many operations. I see this a lot in my coaching practice, which is people 40, 50, around there, going through a lot of life transition.
Yes.
Some of it's very real and tangible, and a lot of it's more in the mind about what's coming next or life changes. And I would love it if you guys could speak a little bit to that and how we
Absolutely.
can use the emotions to affect changes to our vitality, how we feel with our energy, and our happiness versus stress. Because it causes a
Absolutely.
lot of stress and worry.
Yes.
And anxiety is one of the biggest commonalities I see with my clients right now.
Yes, absolutely. Well, stress, it's not just a buzzword. It's actually a physiologic state. It's a chemical state.
Yeah.
And when we're in the state of stress, whether it's worry about our kids or anxiety about something you didn't do or should have done, something's going to happen, or it could be about money, or just working a job that you don't really love, you're not psyched up for, so maybe you get up out of bed and you really don't want to get up, but you get up anyway. You're not in that chemical state of thriving. When we're in a stress state, our cortisol levels are really high. Epinephrine is a lot higher than it should be, and norepinephrine, these are all stress chemicals, driving the boat, let's go, let's get it going. These are chemicals that are the reactive chemicals, like as if you're running from the bear, so to speak. So you got to mobilize, and you got to make it happen and be superpower, super strength. But it's meant to be in a short period of time,
Short
and
burst.
then get
Yes.
turned off.
Right.
And when you're in that state, right, you're running from the bear, you're not digesting your food. You're not developing creative thinking in the brain of wonder and awe and inspiration of, I would love blah, 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 fill in the blank, of tapping into your creativity. You don't need to be creative, you just got to move. So it literally takes all of your resource and focuses narrow-minded into just this one moment of what I need to know, and you lose the big picture.
Right.
So you can't see the outcome of your actions
Right.
in a way where you would normally be able to delineate that. They've shown patients with brain injury to the frontal lobe. That's when
Okay.
you're in the, so the opposite of that is your relaxation state. You're using more the conscious mind. You can come into your creative visioning. You can have a big picture awareness and know, like, what would be the absolute best thing to say in this moment?
Right.
What would be the best thing to do? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? You have this big picture awareness. When you have the stress state, you're not in that. You're not accessing that clear thinking. And when they have seen patients with damage to the frontal lobe, they actually engage in activities that are great for the short-term bang. Like, I'm going to go out and drink and party and go hook up with a beautiful woman, right? But not have the ability to see, like, this is going to destroy my marriage.
What are the consequences? Yes.
What are the consequences to my beautiful children who I love and raising them and their long-term outcome of how they're going to go about trusting people in their personal relationships?
Interesting.
They don't have the ability to think about any of that. It's just the short-term gain.
Because they're so stressed out and living their
Well,
in their
because the
frontal
people
lobe?
who've had a frontal lobe deficit, like they've had a head injury or any kind of brain
okay.
injury, that's how they do life. They've seen that these brain-injured patients cannot process the big-term consequences.
Wow.
So they'll do crazy things. And they'll
Wow.
love their wife, absolutely live and die for their children, their family, want to hold a job, love their job, want to make it work, but they can't. And it's because they can't get beyond the short-term high from a drug or drinking or woman sex or overeating or any of these things. And the same thing happens to us, non-brain injured patients when we're in the stress state.
Oh my
We
God.
actually lose our ability to process that connection, big picture awareness, creative thinking, and be aware and connected to the long-term consequence. That's why people can eat a whole chocolate cake. And they're not thinking, wait a
Because
minute.
they're stressed out.
I want to die. I want to look good in my dress tomorrow. I want to be fit and slim and enjoy myself. They can't connect with that future consequence because they're so stressed out. It impairs frontal lobe, conscious brain wiring and conscious brain processing and keeps them in that stress state.
That is fascinating.
And there's another component to that, which for the people that you see, your clients, and those who know Rena, you can totally tell that she's a woman who lives in passion. And
Yeah.
this is a big deal because for the first time, we're starting to realize more and more, as you know, Rena, the effect that passion has in our lives. But the
Yeah.
question is, what does passion have to do with medicine? Because
Yeah.
many people may not really see that connection. And in fact, the connection is completely intricate. It's like super tight. Because when we're living in a state of passion, and we've talked about this, the biochemistry of passion is a biochemistry of thriving. And,
Okay.
and very often people who are in stress, and there's two types of stress. There's what's called eustress, which is a positive or good type of stress, and there's distress.
Okay.
We want to be in a eustress state, but like Kim was saying, not sustained.
Right.
And what happens is that when we're not living passionate lives, we're always catching up with something. However, when we're living from a place of passion and there's priorities in my life, what is it that I derive the most joy, that I feel the happiest with? What really gives me the best bang for the buck, as they say colloquially? That state completely affects my experience of my health and my life, the people around me. When you come from a place of passion, the biochemistry that is being generated in your life changes completely and puts you in a state of thriving. And for people who are being coached, when they start to really understand what that list of things is, when those passions are, that's when you start to see what the changes are. And things start to happen, and I feel better, and my weight is going down, and you put something that's like, wow, this is the best I've ever looked. But what's really interesting is that it goes deeper than that. And your health, your body, your cells are listening, and they're benefiting from that. So those people who are in that constant stress, and things are just not quite jogging the way they wanted, typically it's because they're now coming from a place of passion.
Yes.
And their
believe
health
that.
and their vitality is affected by
Yeah,
it.
yeah, absolutely. I
Right.
believe that. I see so many of my clients who are sometimes a little reluctant to sign up for a 3-month coaching program, and I say, look, I want to help you start taking action and gain momentum so that you see the progress.
Yeah.
And I think the reason behind that is exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
It builds up their passions, and all sorts of
Right.
stuff that you were
Right.
explaining happens in their cells.
Right,
It becomes
right.
a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, it's what you don't know that you don't know. Like, you may be doing fine, you're not having major health problems, you're not having maybe any major marital problems, But you don't realize what a thriving life really could be. And when you could use your imagination, like I tell people, if you could wave a magic wand and your life has the things in it, the components, the experiences, the contribution and growth that you really want to be living. And then they're like, well, wait a minute. Well, yeah, but I can't have that because blah, 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 and I can't have that because, but there's all of these assumptions that they don't even know are in there until you say, no, we're just going to wave a magic wand. Oh, well, if I could have anything.
Right.
And then they'll tell me.
Right, yes.
Then they'll tell me all kinds of things.
I know,
and I'm
I
like,
know.
oh my gosh, she didn't know she could have that? She didn't know she could have a lover that would just devour her on a regular basis. You have amazing sex life. Just like when we first got together. No, you can have that. Well, but we've been married for 30 years, nobody has that. So you have to distinguish. Yeah. You don't know anybody who has this. You've never met anybody. Does that mean it's not available? Does that mean it's not possible? Yeah. And the best thing about a coach is not only the perspective that they can give you. We teach a lot more about this in our courses, that your presence actually has impact.
Yeah.
Right? And
interesting. Yeah.
This comes beyond the chemical of your thoughts and the biochemical consequences they have in your body and the biochemical impact. But your thoughts also generate an electromagnetic field.
Okay.
Just like your heart, you can look at the EKG and you look at the electrical activity going through the heart. Same thing happens with your mind. And depending on the quality of thoughts, right? So high quality thoughts, I'm amazing, I can do anything. Low quality thoughts, I'm a loser, no one will ever accept me, it's not going to be okay.
Yeah.
So high quality thoughts, you actually generate a different kind of an electromagnetic field. And very interestingly, we can measure this up to 8 to 10 feet out from the body.
Wow.
And Institute for Heart Math has done tons of research working with this and looking at what happens to heart rate, what happens to blood pressure, what happens to the respiratory rate. How are these coordinated physiologically when someone is in this kind of state?
Yeah.
And then when there's other state, anger, fear, anxiety, frustration, the opposite happens.
Yes.
It's a discordant effect on the blood pressure, the heart rate, the respiratory rate, and how these are associated. But not only that, it's actually palpable in the area around you, right?
Wow.
So that means you're having an effect that's either bringing out the best in your partner or bringing out the worst in your partner.
That's right.
It's not like I have this great perfect partner, okay, I found the perfect partner, and now my life's going to be great. No, because there's certain aspects I could pull out of him that are not so enjoyable, not so wonderful.
That's right.
And I can be right and complain to my girlfriend and call my mother, I got this problem, and I'm right. Or I can find a way to be in this situation that brings out a different result.
Oh,
brings out a different result in my kids, brings out a different result in my marriage, brings out a different result at work. So I'm honored and respected and valued, and hey, want more money? Here's your money, because you're of value. So when we have a coach, we're actually not only benefiting from inside of what someone's telling us or some things we learn, but the ability of to be in the presence of someone at that higher frequency actually is contagious. It actually changes our neurologic patterning and the way our mind is wired. Like the neurological synapses, because they're carrying a certain kind of information over and over and over, like a record.
That is so cool. That's sort of like, it sounds to me like the scientific medical explanation what happens when we've all been at a party and someone walks in and they're just full of life, full of energy, full of passion, and suddenly you just feel really good.
Yes.
It's sort of contagious.
Yes.
And the reverse happens too.
Yeah.
Suddenly you'll be in a room and then someone walks in and they're just so down and they're so low. They don't even have to say anything.
Or you have a person you coach and she'll say, you're right, I'm going to say this and I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to put up with any crap I don't want. You're right, I'm worth it. And she can say this and feel this and think this in your presence. And then she goes in the room with her husband,
who's a downer,
who she is disempowered in the relationship to. It's not even about him; it's who it represents to her, right? So she's like deer in the headlights, right? Because they'll go back into their old neurologic patterning, right? Habits. The grooves in the record, and they don't even have access to those higher awarenesses and ways of thinking. That's why you have to practice with the coach, with or even listening to a video like this, a new idea. Whoa, really? What does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? Feel it in your body.
Right.
Because when you bring your awareness to the experience of this in your body, you rewire, you're hardwiring, you change your neurologic patterns, bringing your awareness to your conversation with your coach. same thing.
Yeah.
And that's why the role playing can be extremely valuable, because you can take them into that physiology and
Right.
neurologic wiring
Right.
of what it's like to be in front of their boss or their partner if they're intimidated, and to rise and react
Yes.
and respond in a different way.
And I just want to, take what you were saying. If we think about the record that she was talking about, sometimes in the LPs, there would be a small scratch, right, Rena?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be going around, and then once the needle hit it, it would skip,
Yeah.
but stay in the same song.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, the song, it's great, it's fine, and then you get to the same point in the same song. But there's some scratches that sometimes, once the needle hits them, they go completely to another song.
Yeah, it bumps it way over.
The good
Yeah.
song.
Bumps to the really
Yeah.
good song. And sometimes that song, you might have never even heard it before. And you're like, wow, I had to go through that big scratch to get into a track that I had never seen before.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
That's what coaches do. Coaches are...
I know exactly what you're talking about. I just never knew the scientific reason behind it. I do
Yeah.
these kinds of exercises with
Yeah.
my clients all the time, but I
Yeah.
didn't understand why it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that big scratch is sometimes a huge physiologic shift in your
Yeah.
life for something that you've been able to incorporate.
Yeah.
And now you don't go back to that track. Now you're in a different... That's the quantum leap. You're
Right.
completely in a different state, never to go back again.
Wow.
Just
Well, we
boom, you
also can
jumped.
offer your listeners too, if we could. There's a MP3 audio we've done called The Universal Principles of Thriving, and it's the belief patterns. It's the universal truths, right? Because our beliefs are just our beliefs. They're not actually true.
Right,
You know,
yes.
you can say, well, there's not enough money to go around, or you can't make money unless you work really hard. Is it really true? Well,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, Judge Judy works 8 days a year. She seems to be not the
Yeah.
happiest
Doing pretty
person in the
well.
world, but it's not true that I have to work my butt off in order to make money. So, okay. But then you might say, well, it's true that it's not okay for me to have a life
Right.
like that. So you can whittle these down. Well, is it absolutely true? And question them. But what you get to are actually the universal truths.
Right.
So one of them we've been talking about here, that your thoughts have an impact on your life. Your thoughts create your physiology, they create your cellular experience, they actually also create your experience in your external life, your relationships, your prosperity, your
Yeah.
family. And so that's a universal truth. And if you work, and I'm sure you work with this in your coaching, you apply that understanding
Yep.
in everything you do.
Yep.
And I've put together an audio of several other universal truths that empower you.
Oh,
and these are true
fantastic.
whether you believe them or not.
So
They're
how
true.
can everybody out there get a hold of that?
So you can go to thethrivedoctors.com /gift, GIFT, the Thrive, THRIVE, doctors.com
Perfect,
/gift.
perfect. Now, related to that, you two have some products, some courses that you offer to the public. And can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, the
because
biggest
that sounds really
thing
cool.
we
You
have-
don't have to come to Boston and see them in person, although you
That would
can.
be great.
Well, there's a live and live streamed workshop that we do. It's in August, and it's called Unleashing the Physician Within. And it's all about connecting with your inner intelligence.
Love that.
Knows
Love.
way beyond
Yes.
what you ever consciously know. And we do really two things, is to change the unconscious programming, because that autopilot's playing whether you want to listen to it and believe
Over
it
and over.
or not. And it's guiding your life. So you either get present, right, and you stay in that prefrontal experience of determining my own wishes, desires, and
Yep.
values, or you're on autopilot. You're either one or the other. So we teach people how to get more present and also how to rewire all of that neurologic autopilot patterning so that you have a win-win, thriving life either way. And we have online courses as well. We can be reached at the Thrive Doctors.
Yep.
The workshop still has space available, and again, it's live streamed, so from home or fly here and be with us. There is nothing like being in the
In the
physical
room,
room.
yeah.
I honestly, and
I agree. I so agree.
You can't even put words into how this work has
Yeah.
changed my life. And when I've been in the presence of people who've really mastered that, quantum leap.
Yes, I
Quantum
absolutely
leap.
agree. I'm going. I hope if any of you are anywhere remotely close to New England, especially Boston, that you'll come join us in August. It's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, we'll see you
Love to
there.
welcome you there.
Thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is Dr. Kim and Dr. Mario
Rena.
of thethrivedoctors.com. Go to their website to learn. They have so much more content there. Their weekly radio show is there with some incredible experts, information about their products, and they just have so much to offer there, in addition to the free gift that they just offered you all. So thanks again for watching and listening. If you like this video, we hope you'll share it. Click on the link below and come back next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.